All right, 1, 2. Can everybody hear me? Perfect. I'm Kyle Christian Steele, and I'm the CEO of Dotcaster. Woo! Thank you very much. Need a clicker here. All right, hope we get this right. There's a country called Sierra Leone, which is off the west coast of Africa. And in 1998, a gentleman by the name of Charles Taylor, who was disgruntled with the Sierra Leone government, decided that he wanted to take over. So he marched his soldiers or his rebel force within the capital of Sierra Leone, which is called Freetown. At that moment, for the next 11 years, the most catastrophic war started to take place in this part of the African continent. In 1998, Charles Taylor, after much struggle, after many years, joined forces with some Sierra Leone Army disgruntled officers. And finally, they said, let's march into the city of Freetown. When they did, they met very little resistance. But unfortunately, once they took over, one of the darkest periods in Sierra Leone's history started to take place. Over 50,000 people lost their lives during this event. But what ensued was rape, murder, and pillaging that damaged a nation for years. Over in the village south of Freetown, there was a gentleman who, when these rebel forces marched in, trying to protect his family and his village, lost his life. In a hut not that far from him was his wife and his daughter. After he was killed, these rebel forces walked into that hut, raped and murdered his wife with his infant child laying next to him. Fast forward 14 years later, this picture of Marie Touré, with me sitting next to her, was taken. I spent the last 4 to 5 weeks in Sierra Leone learning Marie Touré's story. It was her story of this tragedy that took place and what blossomed out of that tragedy, which was a very well-adjusted, a very smart, a very beautiful young girl, which compelled me to invest in Marie. And so for the past 3 years, I've invested in her education, her schooling, and I continue to see her every year. So the point of all this is that storytelling, if told correctly, is very rich and very compelling. And today, I want to talk to you, not in such dark terms, but I want to talk to you about the power or the art of telling stories in regards to your event. Now, what is storytelling? Storytelling is just simply conveying of words and attaching images to it, just like I just did there with Marie Touré and I in Southern Baton Makela. And when you do that, you want to center the story around a plot, a character, and just a narrative point of view. And when you do all of that, it doesn't matter. When you do all of that, it doesn't matter whether the event, in terms of your event, whether it's a cocktail party that's hosted or that's hosting 60 people, whether it's a lecture hall full of 600 people that you're organizing, a Justin Bieber concert, right? Or a backyard corporate event, and last but not least, an event such as this where you have people meeting, conferencing, talking about issues and products and services. But the fact is that in all of these scenarios, what's happening is that new connections are being made. People are walking up to people, introducing themselves. How you doing, Jeffrey? I'm Kyle. Enjoying chips? Wonderful. All right. New connections are being made. People are sharing ideas and information, right? People are learning things. Hopefully you learned something from the session today. And last but not least, you as an event planner are changing lives. And when you put these things together, you're getting a story. And your stories are being told of the individuals who are in the room, of how you're impacting their lives with your event. Now, the beauty is if you put this together year after year after year, you start compiling rich stories on people that you can now tell and begin the process of storytelling. So before we go into storytelling, let's just understand why it's important. It's important in decision making, right? You have to make decisions about your event on how to enhance that event for the benefit of your stakeholders. Stories can help you see what's going on so you can start shaping your event to fit the needs of those individuals. Spot opportunities, right? To be able to see a story, you can spot an opportunity that one day you can use to deploy into your next event. And last but not least, to showcase value, right? As a planner, you're impacting people. And that impact allows you, if you're able to articulate it, allows you to showcase the value to your event owners, to your exhibitors, to your sponsors, to the attendees on why they should be or invest in your event. And it all starts, in this case, with data, right? This is a tech conference. So it's data. So, and we're not talking about any kind of data, but we're talking about attendee-generated data. So whether it's from Eventbrite, your registration data, your registration system, social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, MailChimp, right? Your marketing system, SurveyMonkey, and then your event app, right? And what we want to do with this data is that we want to make it very character-centric. Okay, so we want to take this data and start attaching it to individuals. Oh, let's kind of skip here. Let's see here. All right, cool. All right, so we want to attach it to individuals. Now, but before we do that, there's some rules to the game. The first thing is privacy policy. You must have it. If I was you, I would advise you to stay away from any system that doesn't have a clear privacy policy in place. But fortunately, all of the systems that you're engaging in and seeing today have those privacy policies in place. And what they do is they protect you. They tell the user in terms of like, what are you doing with the data and how are you protecting them as a consumer or a user of the system. Transparency. Don't lie. Just be open, right? Tell people what and why you're using this data. They'll be more than happy to know that you're using the information to enhance the event so they can get the most out of your event. Next, number 3, stay away from the kiddies, right? Kiddies are bad. They get you in trouble. We all know that. Well, I don't, but I don't have children, but you do if you have children. And most importantly, you want to stay away from the 13-year-olds because of this law right here, which is called COPA. Now, you're legally allowed to collect data from a child, but with the consent of their parents. But the loopholes and the hurdles that you have to go through are so astronomical that we will recommend that you just stay away from it completely, right? So the point is, if you see data coming in from a 13-year-old or less, discard it. And the reason why is because the federal government will fine you. This company, which is a blogging platform, the federal government fined them $1 million over a year ago because they collected data on 13-year-olds without their permission, right? So we don't want to dig in your pockets, take your money, so stay away from the kiddies. All right, now that we're let's get away from the boring stuff. Let's get back to storytelling. So remember, we said that storytelling starts with data. Oh, my monitor's working. It starts with data that's attended or generated by systems that engage the attendees, right? You have Eventbrite, you have social media, you have your event app, you have MailChimp, which you're marketing to, and you're getting feedback on what they're responding to. And then you have SurveyMonkey, which you need in order to figure out post-event, like what people like and don't like about your event. And we're going to take that data and we're going to dump it on top of an individual, a person, a character. Remember, that's key to our storytelling. All right, let's get it started. Now, how do you do all this? There's data everywhere, right? And the task of bringing it all together is just daunting. So you need some kind of system, whether you build it on your own or you go purchase one, that allows you to collect all this data and then be able to put it and to visualize it. So what we call it a data collection and analytics platform. Once that's in place, let's start looking at the information we can get from each piece. Eventbrite, simple, right? It's about who attended your event, who didn't attend your event, And then they're paying money, so you now know over time what's the lifetime value of that individual. Next, MailChimp, message responsiveness, right? You send out a message to these people. They're either responding or they're not responding. And they're responding because either they don't care or you're not messaging them right, but the fact is that this information is valuable to you and you need to make it part of your story. Demographic, biographical interest. You get that from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I don't really want to go into that any further. Your apps, right? Whether it's Bloodhound, Event Locker, Bizzabo, Double Dutch, all right? Tells you the interests of the people, how they're engaging, their behaviors, and also life changes, right? Because people are logging into these systems with LinkedIn. And if they keep coming back to your event every single year, you can look and see how their lives are changing. Did they get a promotion? Did they get fired? Whatever. All right. And then SurveyMonkey, attitudes and thoughts, right? That's very important. So we want to collect that data. Now, once you do that, we can start the process of building the story. So let's use this example, Planner Tech, right? We're going to take a look at it over a 4-year span. Our character, Merideth, right? She's a phenomenal lady. Merideth, in the system, we know, based on her Eventbrite registration, works for Sequoia Productions, and that she's the director of ops, and her lifetime value or her revenue value per event is $200. That's important. So we like to flag Merideth because we feel like she's high priority. Now, at the event, first year, she goes to Corbin Ball's session, who's back there preparing. She downloads this presentation called Corbin's Crystal Ball, and during the event, she reaches out and tries to connect with 32 people, right? She does that through the app that she's using. The other thing is, one of the people that she's trying to reach out to is a gentleman by the name of Steve, who's a VP at Hargrove. So we won't talk about Steve right now, but let's keep track of him. The second year, all of a sudden now we see, she got a promotion. She's now the VP of Ops because she was flagged in the system. The system told you, Merideth got a promotion. And she works at Hargrove Inc. now. And by the way, out of the 32 connections she tried to establish last year, 23 of them came through. So your event has impact as a planner. You know you're doing something special. And by the way, Steve used to be VP, now a senior VP. Let's keep going forward. Next year, they fall off the radar. We don't know what happened, all right? They moved to another country, maybe they got married, who knows? But they fell off the radar. Why? You know that? Because they didn't show up in Eventbrite and you had flagged Merideth, and because that flag, when your event came through the following year, that flag told you that Merideth and Steve were not part of your event. So you begin a process because now you're proactive, right? You're not being reactive, you're being proactive. You're figuring out, how do I get Merideth back to this event? And so what you do is you go back through your system, start analyzing, connecting the dots, figuring out what's the common denominator with Merideth and the rest of my attendees in this room. And in this case, her denominator is my beloved University of Michigan. Go Blue! Go Blue! So that's what we're going to use to entice Merideth. The fact that she's in a room or she's attending an event with fellow Michigan alums. So we begin our process of using MailChimp to get her re-engaged into the event. And guess what? It works. But this year, we noticed that through the Eventbrite system, when she registers, that there's something very special that took place. Merideth is now a partner. Steve is now a partner. And guess what? They founded a company on June 13th that they started together. That's amazing information, right? And when we go back and we sift through all the data, we know that you as a planner had profound impact on these two getting together. Because in 2011, at your very first event, they both sat at table 29, seats 8 and 9. That's the power of data and deploying a system in which we call, integrating this data and creating a storytelling platform by bringing in all this information so you can now begin to connect the dots and be able to tell not only the story of Merideth, but the story of every single individual in this room. You, and you. And these stories get richer and more powerful every single year as you consistently do this. So, in the end, this is kind of disjointed here, but I felt like it just needed to be a little dramatic. Error. YouTube video doesn't work. But anyway, in the end, the point I'm trying to make here is that with the data and being able and to have that data in one place and to build it on top of an individual, as a planner, you're now able to be very proactive and reach down into your event and pull these stories out. And now you're able to visually or inject them into visual mediums like video, pictures, interviews. And the purpose of this is so that when you sit in a room, not only do you have the data to validate why an attendee or a sponsor or exhibitor should be a part of your event, but now you can tell them a very emotional, compelling story that tugs at them and says, this is the reason why you need to be a part of my event. That's it. Thank you.